Hi, welcome to Exploring the Illusion of Free Will. My name is George Ortega, and I'm here with my very special guest, Nick Vale. Nick, great to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, this is episode number 100, or number 203, Integrating Disbelief and Free Will. In other words, fine, we understand we don't have a free will, but it's not just a matter of understanding it, because we've been so thoroughly conditioned to believe in free will that even though we might intellectually know that we don't have a free will, and incidentally, Darwin, Freud, and Einstein also understand we don't have a free will. It's not just enough to understand it. We have to reprogram ourselves to be able to put it into practice. Okay, before we get into this theme, Nick, explain to the audience what most people mean mistakenly when they say they have a free will.
Okay, the key word here is most, because I don't want to talk about philosophers and esoteric metaphysical scholars like George and myself and public intellectuals who understand all the intricacies and nuances. What most people mean is, I did this of my own free will, meaning no human being is forcing me to do it. I am here because I want to do it. I've desired to do it. I'm not being forced, coerced, manipulated, blackmailed, ransomed, and any kind of threat of bodily injury, financial detriment. I'm here with no repercussions. I'm here because I want to be here. That's what people mean.
Okay,
Another human being is not causing
me. Now that's what people mean when they don't know enough about the free will debate.
Now I can answer what. Okay.
All right. So now when you ask somebody who knows what this debate is about, because this debate has been around for a couple of thousand years. Mm-hmm. So what is the free will that Darwin, Freud, and Einstein are saying does not exist?
What they're saying is that you could have done otherwise, that nothing beyond your control, not just human beings. A human being is one very visible thing. What the real experts understand is that they mean not the pleasure principle, not the unconscious, not a whole host financial pressure. Just because a human being isn't saying you should or shouldn't go somewhere, it's all the laws of the universe. Basically, it's the pleasure principle so if no one is forcing you, you still have this invisible world called internal feelings that are causing you to go. So it's not a person, it's your own. Let's call a person external. And what they're saying is there's nothing internal, but internal is caused by feelings, and we are not in control. We do not choose consciously our feelings. We just go to places because we want to and we desire to, but we do not choose what our wants and desires are.
Exactly. And like when you said that free will is the belief that we could have done otherwise. So let me go over that in a bit more detail. Basically, a person who says they have a free will says you have the same initial circumstances, same, laws of nature and all. If you do one thing, if you decided, one way, let's say you decided for an apple the first time, the same initial conditions, everything's the same. The second time, you could actually, of your free will, choose an orange. Okay? So in other words, that's the idea of being able to have done otherwise. Now, obviously, anybody who knows anything about reality, about physics, knows you could not have done otherwise. In other words, we have these laws of nature, and if it's the same universe, the same laws of nature, you have the same cause, same effect, same initial conditions, same outcome. All right, so and the other way to understand this belief in free will is people believe that I, not God, who's supposed to be all-powerful, not things that I can't control, the key word is control, that I am doing what I want to because I want to, and nothing that's not in my control is making me. Now, obviously, our genes are contributing and sometimes making us behave the way we do. Our environment, the way we were raised, what we know, what we don't know, what our moral code is, all these things are unconscious. These things that we're not in our control of ultimately actually make us who we are and
are not visible.
Right.
They're invisible.
They're not only, right, for example, our unconscious.
A human being forcing you to do something is a visible, external, tangible cause. What George was talking about, all those things you listed are invisible, but nonetheless just as powerful as somebody forcing you.
Exactly. All right. Now, in terms of why this is important, some
Okay.
people might claim, fine, we don't have free will, it doesn't matter, right? But no, it matters profoundly because, like, for example, in our world, we have, like, we have people, let's say kids, who get into trouble with the law and they're incarcerated and they're punished for what they did, but, like, people who believe in free will say, well, you of your free will did this and you deserve to suffer and all. Whereas, like, to the extent you understand that nobody has a free will, people would say, fine, we still have to have our rules and laws to deter crime and stuff, but we have to understand, wait a minute, these kids did what they did because there's a dysfunction in society. In other words, like, that because we, in order to change their behavior, we have to change our society because they don't have a free will, because they don't have a will that's free of the societal influences, like the violence in society and all these, like, negative influences they get through the media.
Right.
So it's important.
So today's topic is integrating disbelief and free will. Are you going to talk about how to do that, or why it's important, or what?
But all of the above, absolutely.
So you want to say, let's assume that this show catches on and people begin to believe that free will is an illusion, there's no free will. How do we begin to integrate this disbelief and free will? That's an excellent point.
And even Nick, even, like, let's say people will get this, like, let's say everybody gets this in 5 years, right? I'm talking about even tomorrow. Like, if you get that we don't have a free will, it's not enough just to get it. In other words, like, because we've been so thoroughly programmed by our religion, by our society, to believe in free will, even though you intellectually, logically understand that we don't have a free will, you still might behave as if you have one. For example, if somebody does something wrong to you, right? Even though you understand that they didn't have a free will, because nobody has a free will, you still might direct your anger, your hostility to that person based on this free will belief. So basically what we're advocating is it's not enough to just know that we don't have a free will. In order for this knowledge to be purposeful, to serve our world, to benefit our world, we have to, like, put it into practice. And part of putting it into practice is reprogramming ourselves from these years of being conditioned to believe we have a free will.
All right, so today's topic is integrating disbelief and free will. How does an individual do that, or how about society?
Both, either one.
Well, can I say that, like I said last show, we are doing this in the end of April of 2016. We are in the middle of a political campaign season, and we'll be heading into the fall with two candidates or maybe more that are going to have debates. We've had tons of debates just within the parties. We will soon be having not only presidential debates, but vice presidential debates. And George and I would like to have a moderator on CNN or Fox News or any of the channels that will be moderating debates to simply ask the candidates 6 little words. Do you believe in free will? Now, why do you think that would be important at a political debate? In my opinion, it's a rationale for public policy, but would that get the ball rolling about this issue?
I think it
Where
would,
else could it go? I mean,
gotta understand.
the religious leaders are never going to debate it, not for the next, politicians, or what about legal scholars or mental health professionals maybe at sometimes they have conventions. And what about philosophers? But nobody listens to philosophers. So.
Well, no, it should be injected into our politics because, for example, in our criminal justice system,
that's a good one.
The Supreme Court in 1973 completely bewilderingly, decided that free will is the law of the land. They obviously have no conception of what the term free will means, or they have no conception of the arguments, Einstein's argument, Freud's argument, Darwin's arguments against free will. So basically, like, the first step is to get our politicians, our educators, our society to understand that we don't have a free will, and that's not so, like, integrating it. The disbelief, that means, like, that we recognize when somebody does something wrong, when a kid does something wrong, instead of, like, throwing the book at them, recognize that what they did is not free of the influences of society that molded them, that made them who they are. And this, we were talking in the last episode of people who fail, who, like, as hard as they try, they lose their job. They're just, like, they can't make it in the career. They end up blaming themselves, becoming very depressed, and then they go into our mental health system, antidepressants. Sometimes they commit suicide. This is all, so much of it is because they blame themselves and punish themselves for this free will belief. So part of integrating this understanding that we don't have free will is, again, like, it's not just in our criminal justice system. our system of psychiatry, mental health system, should be telling people, listen, fine, we have to uphold morality, rules, and laws, but to the extent you believe in free will, not only is it delusional, but you're going to be hurting yourself and other people. But more, so like, Nick, in your personal life, how do you go about like moving from just understanding that nobody has a free will to then just like making this knowledge work for you in your life?
Well, you got to understand everything's fated and predetermined. So I had a situation where had you had a girlfriend or whatever, and you see that maybe she's cheating on you, and you get very upset, and chemicals fire, and you yell at her and curse at her. And I think pragmatically it's one thing, but emotionally it's very, very difficult to incorporate free will as an illusion in a moment in time that you're highly emotional and highly upset and aroused and like very upset that you've just discovered some very bad news. However, once the chemicals are released, once the whole explosion's over, when you have some quiet time and you're sitting at home, you can say, wow, that was predetermined. There was no way I could help it. It was meant to be that I wouldn't be with her, or that company wouldn't do well, my company wouldn't do well, or I would have to file for bankruptcy, or I heard someone died. So the moment you get the bad news or discover the horrible situation, I don't think George is correct that you can really integrate it in such a way that you can modify and temper and even mute your emotions. They're going to explode, and you're going to probably be just as angry. However, once that moment has passed, you can forgive yourself very easily. You can forgive the other person and just realize that the universe has spoken through your chemicals that caused you to raise your voice and yell and scream, and it was just meant to be that relationship would end. If you really integrated no free will and that horrible situation came at you and you didn't get that upset, then no one would ever leave anybody, and nobody would ever, feel terrible enough about something to take a different, course of action. So I think if you integrate it, it's after the initial emotional moment, because I don't think we can help that initial explosion of chemicals from causing us to be highly emotional. Maybe a little tempered, but not eradicated.
All right, I want to address this, an important point. So in other words, like, you're right. In other words, where somebody does something wrong at our expense, we have these emotions that override...
Chemicals. Yeah, uncontrollable chemicals.
Override our reasoning. We
right.
know it's not their fault, but our emotions are telling us blame them anyhow. All right, but you got to understand...
But if you severely blame them, you can sever the relationship.
I know, but you got to understand...
That's predetermined to sever
these
it.
Emotions are predicated on the belief in free will. For example, like, let's say the case was that something was done for you, against you in New York, but the person you're thinking of blaming is in California. Now, you could not possibly get angry at that person in California because your logic would be so overriding.
Okay, but George, if you have a girlfriend or a wife and she does something horrific, you come home and she's cheating on you, and you don't have that explosion, then you'll never sever the relationship. And in my case, I did it, and I got somebody much better for me later on. But if I do your theory and I really integrate it, and I have the emotional outburst, and I quickly realize that my reason should trump emotions, and I don't have the outburst, then you'll end up dating the same girl forever and let her cheat on you. The fact is, I don't believe in free will, and I still went a little nuts. And because I went nuts, I was able to sever the relationship. I don't talk to her anymore. And a few months later, someone better for me popped up. So I just look at it as all part of one predetermined movie. The yelling and screaming was a fated explosion of anger that I had. It doesn't mean that I can stop it, because what you're proposing is anybody will do anything horrible to you and you will never get that upset, so nobody would ever break up.
All right, well, all right, you've got almost everything right. Let me propose a different kind of scenario for you. Okay, you suspect your girlfriend is cheating, and because you understand that it's God or the laws of nature that are making her, you obviously can't get angry at her. I mean, like, this is like you've integrated more fully, but you also don't want a girlfriend that cheats on you. So, like, without becoming angry, you're saying, wait a minute, I think I'd rather have a girlfriend, a wife, whatever, that doesn't cheat on me. So you might say to her, listen, I don't blame you because I know it's not your fault. You don't have a free will. Nobody has a free will. But you have to understand, I'd like a person, I'd like to be with a person that doesn't cheat on me. Now, completely, rational, completely.
But it's not really severing the relationship.
No, you sever the relationship.
Oh,
You say, listen, I can't see you again. I can't see you again because I need a person who's going to be
Okay, but when you
faithful.
yell and scream and say hurtful things, it's a lot easier to not be able to come back from that because people have memories. How dare you say that to me? You raised your voice, you threatened me, you sounded very violent, I didn't sound, but it scares me, and it's bad energy. And with your way, it's so calm and calculated that it's almost harder. It is harder to sever it.
Now here's another
and then you'll
thing,
never meet the next person.
Right, and it is hard. So in other words, I'm not saying that you're going to succeed with this overnight or even within a year or something.
So you're saying I could have severed it just the same way, but not with the emotional craziness.
And the other thing is another thing we're battling with now is we might get that nobody has a free will, but the vast majority of society isn't there yet. So in other words, imagine this happened 30 years from now, where 20 years before everybody got it, and it was in other words, you'd have this this powerful influence throughout every sector of society telling you, wait a minute, don't blame people for what's not, under their control.
But wait a second, I just want to go back to severing the relationship with the next girlfriend. So if you have a girlfriend or wife and you catch her cheating on you, and with your theory, you integrate this disbelief of free will to such an extent that you're able to calmly just tell her, I don't want to see you anymore, the pain isn't great enough that you would say. In other words, when I did what I did and then I got sick over it and I couldn't get out of bed and the panic attacks, my body was so emotional that I know that I can never call her again because it's not good for me. If I don't have all those chemical reactions that are so intense and everything's just listen, I'm sorry, it doesn't work out, I don't really want... My body's not going to know, danger, danger, stay away from her. When you touch a hot pot and it hurts, it needs to really hurt, so you don't do it again. I don't want to call her anymore, and that's because of that severe emotional reaction, I was able to know there was a vacuum. There was a vacuum of romantic love in my life. I could never go back because of how horrible I acted towards her because of what she did to me. And I got another girl because I was open the door. There was a vacuum. In your method, you'll never get that emotional where the vacuum's never created.
But you got to understand, for example, another emotion that plays a part in this is fear. For example, a lot of people don't break laws because they're afraid of the consequences if they broke a law, right? But for example, we wouldn't go out and all of a sudden start killing a lot of people because we're afraid of the punishment. We don't do that because we have a conscience. We know that's not the right thing to do, so we don't have to get afraid to do that. We just know. So in that same way, we can know that we want to be with a person who's not going to cheat on us, and we don't need the anger. Now, again,
But you need the pain to not go back to her.
Well, again, sometimes, for example,
if it doesn't hurt, you'll give her another chance and another chance. Until it hurts enough, you'll say, enough, get the hell away from me.
But let's say you had a previous relationship where this happened before, and you got angry and stuff, and that didn't feel good, right? So you learn from that. So the second time it happens, you already know that. You've already gone through that, and all of a sudden, you don't have to even get angry. You say, listen, I'm sorry, I can't be with a person who cheats with me, and move on.
But on the other hand, if you don't raise your voice and say hurtful things, maybe the other person never gets the message. If you're so politically correct and say, we need to sit down and have a conversation. I know it's not your fault because you don't have free will. There were causes that were out of your control. And I have causes out of my control. I don't want to be with you because you're cheating on me. You don't get out of bed. You don't earn a living. You do nothing. You'll never, and then she does it again. If you don't get highly emotional and raise your voice, possibly curse and, get angry, she'll never... You're not ratcheting it up where she'll think you're serious.
All right.
So what I'm saying is in the no free will world, there's still a place for highly emotional behavior. It's just after that moment you can say, wow, that was fascinating. What a twist to this movie that I'm watching. I wasn't meant to be with her. It was predetermined. Wow, there was a big fight. That was great that I was a witness. And in hindsight, that was fascinating how I got so, you can look at it post hoc and make reasons why you did it and then move on.
All right, imagine a scenario, you've got a teacher in a classroom and a student is constantly disrupting, right? Now imagine this teacher not getting angry at all. She says, listen, Johnny, if you disrupt again, I'm going to send you to the principal. She's not angry. The class is, she doesn't yell at the kid, whatever.
Right.
But she imposes this threat. She says, if you do this, then this is what I'm going to have to do. all, with a calm demeanor without becoming angry. So I grant you it's
But
difficult.
that kid is more likely to do it again.
I grant you it's difficult. Because you know why it's difficult? Because even though you understand logically that this woman doesn't have a free will, your emotions are so ingrained to act in that way against it. But what you have to realize is the reason your emotions are so conditioned to have you react in that way is because those emotions are based on the belief in free will. What I'm saying is like 30 years from now, right, when everybody gets this, it's going to be much, much easier to not even get angry.
But if there's no gradual ramping up of emotions, when that teacher speaks to Johnny in a very calm way, he may not get the message how upset she is. He does it again and again and again because your no free will model is too calm and serene. Eventually, she's going to have to explode and say, I can't believe, how dare you, I'm going to throw you. Because then when you raise your voice and get more and more emotional, people start to listen.
All right, but you got to understand, there's studies on
Otherwise,
this.
nobody will ever do anything.
There's studies on this in child raising. In other words, is it better to punish the kid for what they do wrong, or is it better to calmly, without indicting them, without judging them, explain to them why what they did was wrong? And according to the research, you want to know something, when you don't get angry, when you don't punish them, when you don't become hostile, they respond better. They will more likely do what you want them to do, than if you become hostile.
Okay, but if you're living with someone and you tell her, honey, it would be really nice if you could take out do the dishes every once in a while, that's one thing. Then next week, oh, honey, it would be really nice if you could. Then eventually you say, months and years go by, will you please take out the goddamn dish? I've asked you 100. I know there's no free will, but if you don't start acting more angry and like, I can't, I'm driving me crazy. I've asked, then she gets it. That people don't listen sometimes because they don't, like you've done it to me. When you raise your voice and get more animated, you've ratcheted up and shown the other person that you are really serious.
All right, think about it. How does our law work, our civil law?
All right.
Our civil
I think
law,
a lot of put comments. If this is on YouTube, put comments under who you think is right.
Our civil law doesn't get angry with people. Doesn't say you go into a store and you steal something. This is what we're going to do with you. Our civil law just says, listen, if you act in this way, these are the consequences, right? And our whole criminal justice system is based on that. You don't have people. You don't have politicians, judges, police officers going on TV saying you better not do this, all this stuff. Again,
I'm talking about personal relationships.
No, but it's the same thing.
That are not breaking the law. They're just
same principle.
Doing the dishes or not, it's not against the law. It's just I want some.
You could say to the woman, and again, like this, you're imagining the world as it is now. Imagine it 30 years from now. People get this, so people will expect. People if 30 years from now, and then let's say 10 years from now, everybody got that nobody has a free will. So 20 years after that, if you got angry at your ex-girlfriend for cheating on or something, she'd think you're absolutely out of your mind because she's saying to herself, what are you, crazy? It wasn't up to me. I mean, I realize we have a problem, but you're blaming me for this and you're becoming angry? So what I'm saying is 30 years from now, we'll all be conditioned to understand this so well, we won't even have to resort to anger.
So you don't think raising your voice and getting angrier emphasizes one's and accents the seriousness or this is more important to me than you thought because I'm getting more and more, I'm raising my voice, I'm getting angrier, I went from polite to discourteous to anger to rage and then more cursing and it shows the other person, wow, this is more important to him than I originally thought because he's getting so angry. You're saying there's no point for that gradual escalation emphasis.
I'm not saying that doesn't work because it does work. But what I'm saying is it's more effective, more pleasant for everyone if we take a different approach that's without the anger. And again, I'm also not saying that that's possible today, because even for people like you and me that get this so powerfully, because we're immersed in this delusional society that believes in free will, it's really hard. That's what this show is about. It's really hard to act under this knowledge that we don't have a free will because we've been so conditioned to believe we have free will on the emotional level. But when I'm talking about the future, I'm talking about 30 years from now, people will get it, and eventually we'll be able to kind of express our wants and needs, and people will be accustomed to people not becoming angry, but people becoming, for example, decisive. When you tell your girlfriend, listen, I need you to not cheat on me, then you won't have to be angry because she knows that you'll you mean what you say.
I think emotional outbursts are going to be happening with or without free will. They might be a little softer in the future, But it's after you have the emotional outburst that'll be greatly alleviated your pain, because after you have the emotional outburst, you say, oh my God, I can't believe that the universe had me fated to break up with her. That's fascinating. I had chemicals firing. I know I listened to Nick and George's show and Sam Harris's book, Free Will, which you should buy. I had no control over my emotions. Obviously, it was not meant to be, or meant to be that I got that angry. I was just a witness. I was out of control. I'm not plotting against her. I'm not looking for revenge. It was just meant to be that we would be severed and break up. And even if you end up doing something horrific and, God forbid, getting violent or whatever, you would just say, I was meant to be in jail. The whole thing was predetermined. There was nothing. It would be a lot better how you treat yourself after the emotional outburst, as opposed to, I'm a horrible person. I deserve to die. I shouldn't have done that. I could have kept calm. If you know you couldn't have done otherwise, and you red-handedly caught someone and had an emotional outburst, so be it. You were just chemicals, and you're reacting as an emotional human being who could not have reason trump emotions with the no free will mindset at that time.
All right, you said Trump. I'm going to inject politics in this.
All right, good.
Trump has called women pigs. He insults people all the time, right? Now, under the free will belief, we're going to get angry with this person, right? Now, we don't like getting angry. You got to admit it. Getting
He said all women are pigs? Just some?
He's to some, like Megyn Kelly.
Yeah, so.
No, but he calls them, he insults, it's not just pigs. He insults a lot of people. He gets very offensive. Now, here's the thing. Under the free will belief, we're going to get angry with them, and that's not going to feel good and stuff. We're going to hate the guy and all. Now, to the extent we abandon this belief in free will, we'll say, oh my God, somebody like this, no, they shouldn't be... They shouldn't be like a mayor of a city. There's no way they should be a president, because the guy doesn't have the right mindset for that kind of job. But we do it dispassionately. We say like, whoa, it'd be seriously dangerous to have harmful to have a guy with that kind of mindset, with that callousness, with that, insanity running our country. But we can't blame him. He doesn't have a free will. Who knows what aberration happened in his life where he hates women or something? I don't know. But so we decide, fine, I'm not going to vote for him because he's out of his mind, but I'm not going to get angry with him because it's not his fault. And like if I get angry,
so you could fear Trump, you just won't hate Trump.
Exactly, and you can vote against him, sure.
So you fear painful situations. You don't hate the other person who hurts you. You just fear them.
And so,
but in order for them to fear you, you have to raise your voice sometimes and act a little nutty. Otherwise, they won't fear you, and you'll never sever.
Well, again, sometimes
never sever.
If you don't raise your
25
voice,
seconds.
Say,
do a goodbye commercial.
Listen, girlfriend, I really love you, but, I can't have you cheating on me. You cheat on me one more time, I'm out of here. And you say this very, very compassionately because it's not up to her. And he says, I don't want to, leave you because I really love you and stuff, but that's the way it has to be. You can do this without anger. Again, this is the difficulty. This is the challenge of overcoming free will. Thanks for watching. We'll be back again to explain more. Thanks.